thing I'll say about the grid off is if you catch something over here on the left side and get to hook out, chances are I'm not going anywhere over there on that next cast. I just go right over to the right side. I'm going to ignore that area for a little while because you put all those fish on high alert. Anything you catch, they're all like freaked out going, oh, where'd George go? So over here, they don't know about George. So you go over here and pick on one, and I catch one over here, and it's going to take time to get it in, get the hook out, and I throw back over here. You want to rest the water. Everywhere you take a fish, never go back twice unless you rest it. So in other words, even when a really good spot, you're going to rest that spot to go to a new spot. I mean, don't ever go back twice because it's always a limiting thing that'll run out. If you go back twice, yeah, you'll get a couple of fish, but you won't sit there and get like 20 out of that spot ever because they're all on high alert. So you're trying to force them to do something they don't want to do. It's just like deer hunting and turkey hunting and everything else. They're not going to, you know what I mean? You'd want to rest them if you just took. Okay, so visual nymphing. Do you know what that means? That's where you actually see. You can see your cory in the water and study the fish behavior, what that fish is doing. How active is it moving around eating bugs? Is it just moving? Like if you're out west where there's a lot of food, you'll notice that fish only moves a couple inches because there's so much food, he doesn't have to move far. In the southeast, you'll see fish move 2 or 3 feet away and come back. They're moving a lot further because the food's more scarce. Visual nymphing's by placing your fly, like tuck cast where you think the fish is. And to do this, you learn to do it by putting on bright flies like egg patterns, inchworms that are green, things that you can really see well, to learn like where your fly is and how long it takes to get it down. You want to fish something you can see early on to do that. And then you learn how to do it with flies you don't see because you already done it enough with flies. I know it sounds silly, but it's like that's how you learn the line control.
You know what the line's doing.
You got to learn that. And it's hard to describe that. It's just like you can stand out there and it's like, Charlie, you need to put the brakes on. What I mean is if this is your fly rod and you reach upstream, that's going to give the attitude to the leader coming in at an angle, right? And so if you do that and just hesitate, then we follow, it's going to drop right away because you're feeding that weight, giving it slack to drop right where you want to do it. So that's how we drag and drop the fly exactly where you want. So if I can see a fish from here to the glass, I can throw it in above it, put the brakes on, then drop it right where that fish rests. That's what I mean by visual nymphing. And then I can see the behavior of you can see like if a fish opens his mouth, brown trout or rainbow trout, you see white, you can tell right away he ate your fly. So a lot of fish we catch actually visually seeing them open their mouth, having the ability to put the fly, like literally right there is what I want. Why? Because it's 20 inches. All the other ones is that big. That happens a lot. I mean, that's how you catch those kind of fish. You're actually doing it by drag and dropping the fly exactly to that specific target. And that makes it easier. So visual nymphing is pretty exciting. We got visual as well in wet fly when we're swinging in skinny water, like in the springtime. And you can actually see the fish come out chasing the wet fly, and you can actually see the fish where he starts. So here's the thing, if he's swimming this way following the wet fly, what you're looking for to when you tighten up the rod is when he stops coming that direction. As soon as he puts that fly in its mouth, it's going back where he came from. So you see him coming. As soon as you see him start to go that way, he's already on. Because he didn't swim 10, 15 foot away to not put it in his mouth, okay? So they're always going to, almost always in visual wet fly, same tactic is that really, is you're looking for that behavior difference. If it's coming, then it moves back. And it'll happen, like you'll get one of them, like you'll get one this spring, and you'll be like, that's what he's talking about, because you're going to see it happen. Most people don't even look for when it's happening, but I'm looking always with my glasses in the park, like even when I'm nymphing or wet fly, either one, but I'll be focus some attention. Maybe change fly, whatever. Maybe there's a reason. Here's part of the reading. This is on the Halo. You got slow water here. You got a seam. That's what we call a seam where the slow and the fast meet. You also got some nice edge water over here on the bank. But I'm going to talk about where fish go when there's bugs. So when there's bugs going on, people use creatures of habit will go, man, the fish are always, you've heard the saying, the foam is home, so they think the fish are always out in the foam. That's not true. Fish move depending on what the bug life does. So in the morning, when there's no bug life, fish are sitting out in the, either on this seam or sitting slightly in the soft water where they can look at that fast water, because that's where food's going to come from. The only place food's going to be is where the conveyor belt delivers. In the seam, the slow water side of the seam, there's not going to be a lot of fish because there's not a lot going on with bug activity. Now it warms up at 12 noon and all of a sudden it starts happening with bugs come off. When those bugs start hatching, they're duns, right? And so the duns, like you always, like this time of year, you got a lot of wind and stuff. Most of those duns will collect over in this slow water. So why are the fish eating over here so much more than the fast water? Because then it's back to the law of conservation of energy. You got all available. It's super slow water, so they're not expending energy to eat them. They're just sitting over there slurping them down from the film. So when you start to see that and you start to see rises all over in this slow water, that's your A water. So my point is with this slide, A water, B water, and C water is always changing. What's A water in the morning becomes C water after the hatches come off. See what I'm saying? But people don't like that because people want it to be like, damn it, it was good yesterday. Why isn't it good now? And all of them are over here. You follow me? That's one of the biggest things that confuses people. But fish are ninjas about following where the food is easiest to obtain. They really are. I mean, same thing with bugs. They're going to feed on any bug depending on how much mobility and action that bug can do in the water. Some bugs are helpless. To hatch, it's got a little bubble, like a lot of caddises. It first will ascend just with a little oxygen bubble around its thorax. Then it gets up there at the top and it pupates and it flies away. Other bugs, other caddises can come up through there at a lot faster rate and they can actually swim. So what I'm saying is there's a difference. That's why back to the difference of slow, like in the river, you don't know which bug's coming off. I don't either. But all I know is if I tell you to go slow and me to mix those retrievals up, you'll figure it out real quick. So even though there's thousands of bugs, when we were kids, they kind of sold it to us wrong. Of the books in the 70s and late 60s, they made it sound like it was a lack of your entomological knowledge, which was a bunch of crap. These kids, like we coach, there's no drift, drag free. That's pretty damn simple. I've only given you 2 things to do. Doesn't matter which bug, because you know what? All those bugs move at different rates. Now you figure out the action. That's part of being an angler. So like my kids, I hadn't taught my kids really anything about bugs. They got the skill sets to do all this stuff with zero entomological information. Does that make sense? Because it's real simple. The way to tell them that, because there's so many thousands of species here, like in insects in the water. We have one of the highest diversifications in the world. There's no way you want to get wrapped up in the science of the Latin name of all the bugs, because who cares? Does that make sense?
I don't.
It doesn't really matter. You just want to go fish and have fun. So you just want to have some flies that are like various sizes, various weights, and you can match all of them. That's what I'm trying to say. Whether it's caddis or stonefly, who cares? Good example is like the mop fly was real controversial when it come out. Well, everybody goes, well, what's that? It says like the car washing mitts. We'll tie some of them later. But the mop fly is a really good representation, suggestive of crane fly larva would be the one I think that fish take it for the most here. But they also take it for a case caddis. It could be a small bait fish. It could be a lot of things. What you'll find later on in your fly tying matching, like what you put in your box, will be the patterns that are suggestive of hundreds of things. Those are your best fishing flies. And the more you get realistic on tying like a specific fly in this part of the country, the less and less effective it will be. So what you'll find then over time, you'll start having suggestive. Except for blue wings. Like when we have blue wings in the winter, we tie a lot of blue wing patterns because it's pretty much a staple food over the winter. But we'll talk about that some later. Here's a swinging set by habit. At the bottom, this is the only reason I put this slide in there, like we have a fly thrown upstream, the flow here it's going down, it's going to swing at the bottom. But as a habit, before we launch it again, to throw back up, every time by habit when you nip fish, we want to set the hook at the bottom. We don't ever just start to pick up, raising slow to fast, because what if there's a fish eating it? So by habit, when it's down here, you just give a 6-8 inch jerk of your forearm, just a little to test it. If he's there, the rod's going to double over. If he's not there, you're ready to throw the cast. So either way, you're getting it set, ready to throw, because you're throwing usually up this way. Very rarely you're throwing here. So at the bottom, you see if you've already hook set, you're dragging the fly further here to line it up in that 180 we talked about yesterday, where it's going to make your cast easier. So usually in tournament setting, there's 3 to 4 fish every session. Every session, there's 3 to 4 extra fish Charlie gets just because he's been taught to set the hook at the bottom. And that's really the truth. There's always going to be 3 to 4 extra fish. And I mean, if I said, Charlie, you want to catch 4 extra fish every time? You'd say, yeah. So I'm telling you, set the hook every time at the bottom for that reason, because I know it works. Uh-oh, what happened there? Go back in.
And you're going to be able to send us this PowerPoint thing?
Yeah. I'll put it on Dropbox and share a thing. I think that'd be the easiest thing. Let me think here. There it is. I don't know what happened. That clock come up there and it didn't like that, did it? All right, so how to cover various depths. We talked about this last night about your tuck cast being a steep angle for going deep. All right, your medium entry would be more of a 45-degree angle of leader going in. You're going to hold your rod up more to